The transmission arrived at 2:14 Universal Time, piercing the atmosphere like a blade of cold light, and for 7 long seconds every screen on Earth dissolved into static. When the signal returned, the image of 3 burning suns hovered above the horizon of every device, followed by a voice that resonated with mechanical arrogance. It declared that the Astral Dominion, an empire older than the continents themselves, had placed Earth under a 5-day ultimatum: surrender unconditionally or face annihilation. The word spread faster than shock waves, rolling through cities and deserts, echoing through refugee camps and high-rise towers, until fear became a global language. People gathered on balconies and rooftops to stare at the sky, searching for the enemy ships already forming a grim halo in orbit. No nation had weapons capable of piercing such armor, and no alliance could form quickly enough to stand against their overwhelming numbers. Humanity, despite its stubborn resilience, trembled under the weight of its own fragility. In a war room carved beneath the Rocky Mountains, the last leaders capable of coordinated response gathered as steel table littered with schematics, failed countermeasures, and unstable diplomatic drafts. Among them stood Dr. Serena Hale, a linguist and mythologist with dark, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had spent her life tracing the origins of human legends, and her hand shook only slightly as she laid down a folder thicker than any classified file the generals had seen before. While the others argued about negotiations and surrender protocols, Serena waited until silence fell, then spoke with a calm that seemed borrowed from another world. She explained that humanity possessed a hidden lineage, an ancient branch of hominids that had not vanished, but instead retreated from evolving civilizations. They had survived in the deepest forests, far beyond modern detection, by choice rather than weakness. Each account Serena presented, every blurred photograph and cryptic audio tape, pointed to the same conclusion. 2 descendants of the stone-born clade still lived, and they only intervened when the world stood on the edge of ruin. The generals exchanged doubtful looks, but desperation breeds an openness that peace never allows. Serena insisted that these beings, misunderstood for centuries as myth, possessed unmatched strength, heightened instincts, and a moral code rooted in the preservation of the planet rather than its governments. The idea sounded like madness, yet it offered the only hope that did not end in immediate extinction. After a tense vote, the decision was made. They would seek contact with the Stoneborn, not to beg for mercy, but to ask them to defend the world that had forgotten them. By dawn, Black Ops helicopters cut across the sky toward a remote stretch of the Cascades where Serena claimed the last sightings originated. The forest greeted the team with unnatural quiet, the kind that swallows footsteps and steals breath. As they moved deeper into woods, their radios failed, their compasses spun, and even the air felt watchful. Serena stepped forward without hesitation, as though following a path visible only to her. Moments later, the ground trembled with rhythmic force. Trees parted like curtains pushed aside by a giant hand, revealing 2 towering figures whose silhouettes seemed carved from the mountains themselves. Archon emerged first, his presence radiating an unspoken challenge. His fur, dark as basalt, rippled over muscles that moved with frightening precision. His amber eyes narrowed, not in hostility, but in deep appraisal, as though measuring each human life before him. Mela stepped beside him, taller still, with silver-tinged fur that reflected stray beams of light. Her gaze held an intelligence both ancient and unyielding, and when she spoke, her voice resonated like thunder rolling through stone caverns. She announced that they already knew humanity faced extinction, and had been waiting for the moment they must choose between isolation and intervention. Serena explained the ultimatum, the orbital blockade, and the imminent destruction of their shared home. As she spoke, Mela listened with a patience that contrasted Archon's low, restless growl. When Serena finished, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Mela looked skyward, eyes narrowing at a threat she could not see through the canopy, yet clearly sensed. She declared that Earth was not a possession for any empire to claim, and that her people had defended it long before humans walked upright. Archon stepped forward, his expression fierce yet focused, and added that they would confront the Dominion, not as emissaries, but as guardians awakened from long silence. With that statement, something within Serena shifted. She saw in them not monsters or myths, but the embodiment of humanity's oldest instinct, the refusal to bow to overwhelming odds. As they walked toward the waiting extraction craft, soldiers who had faced the worst horrors of war found themselves stepping back, humbled by the raw certainty in each stride the Stoneborn took. No ceremony marked their departure. No speeches were given. Yet, as the hatch closed and the engines roared to life, every person present felt the first pulse of hope they had experienced since the ultimatum began. The craft lifted into the sky, carrying Earth's last, improbable answer toward the fleet that demanded its surrender. And though no one knew whether strength, strategy, or destiny would guide what came next, all understood one truth. Humanity had not chosen to kneel. It had chosen to rise. The ascent toward the Astra Dominion's flagship began with a tremor that rippled through the hull of the extraction craft as it rose beyond protective cushion of Earth's atmosphere. Inside, Archon and Mela remained seated in silence, their immense forms casting elongated shadows across the dim cabin. The soldiers accompanying them avoided direct stares, not out of fear but reverence, as though sharing the space with beings carved from the primal memory of the planet itself. Archon studied the view through a narrow window, watching Earth shrink into a swirl of blue and white. His expression revealed a mixture of awe and resentment, emotions rooted in the centuries he had spent guarding a world that had never known his name. Mela observed him calmly, noticing the tension coiling through his muscles, and placed a steady hand on his forearm. The small gesture grounded him, signaling they were stepping into the unknown together. Beyond the viewport, the Dominion fleet materialized as a constellation of obsidian constructs. Their warships surrounded the planet like a metal noose, each vessel humming with predatory intent. The flagship loomed larger than the others, a fortress sculpted from alien technology that radiated cold indifference. As the craft approached the docking ring, a deep vibration rolled through the hull, and gravitational locks seized them with mechanical precision. Archon rose with deliberate slowness, testing the air as though tasting the enemy's presence. Mela followed, her posture both graceful and alert, embodying a balance between instinct and intelligence. When the docking doors opened, they stepped out with steady confidence, ignoring the dozens of Dominion soldiers observing them with mass curiosity. The Dominion troopers stood in perfect formation, each clad in mirror-black armor that refracted the overhead lights into jagged shards. Their leader, Commander Syrinx, approached with the poise of someone accustomed to dominance. His armor gleamed with ceremonial etchings, and his voice carried the clipped authority of a being who had never encountered meaningful resistance. He demanded identification, expecting compliance. Mela responded with a simple declaration. They were Earth's chosen emissaries, sent not to negotiate surrender but to assert their right to exist. The answer unsettled Syrinx, yet he masked the reaction behind rigid protocol. He gestured toward a corridor lined with pulsating conduits, instructing them to follow. As they moved deeper into the heart of the flagship, the interior architecture revealed an unsettling blend of organic curvature and metallic rigidity, as though the ship itself were a living entity forced into servitude. Archon analyzed every detail, cataloging potential threats, angles of attack, and structural weaknesses. Mela's focus remained on Syrinx, sensing that his confidence disguised a simmering impatience. Their escort brought them into a chamber where holographic panels displayed tactical data, planetary schematics, and countdown protocols that hinted at a hidden agenda. The Dominion had not come for negotiation. They had come to finalize conquest. Archon noticed a set of dormant weapon platforms integrated into the ceiling, and exchanged a subtle glance with Mela. The Dominion's idea of diplomacy was steeped in coercion. Syrinx began a rehearsed monologue about the Dominion's history, their philosophy of force unity, and the supposed honor offered to Earth through assimilation. The speech felt hollow, a brittle shell wrapped around centuries of imperial arrogance. Mela interrupted him, pointing out the inconsistency between offering peace and positioning weapons within a negotiation chamber. Syrinx's eyes narrowed, and the facade crumbled just enough for his true disdain to emerge. Before he could retaliate verbally, alarms erupted throughout the chamber. A holographic panel flickered to life, revealing that the Dominion fleet had initiated a power surge consistent with orbital assault patterns. Earth's global defense network broadcast a signal in fragmented bursts, confirming the betrayal. Archon's instincts ignited with feral clarity, and he stepped forward, positioning himself between Mela and the nearest soldier as Dominion guards drew their weapons in synchronized motion. Mela's breath deepened, and her eyes shifted into a predatory focus the soldiers failed to interpret until it was far too late. Syrinx declared that Earth's resistance had rendered negotiation pointless. The flagship's core would initiate a cascade sequence leading to full planetary subjugation within hours. His proclamation was meant to intimidate, but it accomplished the opposite. Mela responded with a calm, chilling certainty that reverberated through the chamber. Earth had not sent them to plead. It had sent them to end the threat. Archon lunged first, his movements blurring into raw speed as he disarmed the nearest trooper with a single strike. Armor shattered under the force of his blows, scattering fragments across the floor. Mela advanced simultaneously, weaving through energy blasts with fluid precision before wrenching a weapon from an officer and using it to disable the second row of soldiers. The chamber erupted into chaos. Syrinx retreated toward the tactical console, attempting to seal the room, but Mela intercepted him with a sweeping kick that sent sparks cascading from his chest plate. Archon dismantled the remaining soldiers with efficient brutality, ensuring none could regroup or trigger reinforcements. The alarms intensified, signaling that the Dominion was shifting to combat readiness across the fleet. Syrinx crawled backward, breathing heavily, yet defiant enough to warn them that stopping one room meant nothing. The fleet was already primed for destruction. Archon pulled him upright with a single hand, forcing Syrinx to face the reality he had tried to hide behind posturing. Mela demanded access to the command network, threatening to dismantle the flagship from within unless Syrinx complied. The commander hesitated, weighing arrogance against survival, and finally conceded with a trembling gesture toward the central console. The moment his palm connected with the interface, the holographic panels reconfigured, revealing the vast network controlling the Dominion's offensive systems. As Mela prepared to sever the assault sequence, the ship shuddered violently, as though something awakened deep within its core. The interruption hinted at greater danger, one that promised to challenge him more than any squad of armored soldiers. The flagship itself seemed to resist their intent, but Mela steadied her breath and pressed forward, aware that failure was not a possibility she could afford to consider. The tension coiled tighter, urging what came next in the confrontation, now set into irreversible motion, promised that the true battle had only just begun. The flagship groaned like a wounded colossus as Mela forced the Dominion console to obey her commands, yet every line of code resisted, as though the ship possessed a will forged from centuries of conquest. Archon steadied himself as the deck pitched under their feet, aware that the Dominion would sooner break their own vessel than permit outsiders to seize control of its core systems. Syrinx watched with a mixture of fury and disbelief, held immobile beneath Archon's unrelenting grip, his arrogance draining into something closer to dread. Mela's eyes narrowed as she traced the lattice of commands linking the flagship to the surrounding fleet, recognizing that the Dominion had threaded their systems with traps designed to punish intervention. She advanced through the network with disciplined focus, guided by instinct rather than technological familiarity, shaping her path by sensing the energy beneath its metallic language. Suddenly, the core's defensive matrix activated, projecting a shimmering barrier that forced her back with a vicious pulse of gravitational pressure. Archon reacted immediately, throwing his weight forward to anchor her before the force could crush her ribs. The barrier retreated but left a scorching imprint across Mela's chest, and she breathed through the pain with quiet determination. Syrinx laughed despite the bruises darkening his jaw, insisting the flagship's core would ignite regardless of their interference. Mela silenced him with a glare that froze his breath, reminding him that she did not yield to intimidation, technology, or suffering. Archon tightened his grip, warning Syrinx that every heartbeat of deception brought him closer to a fate far worse than defeat. The commander's bravado thinned, revealing cracks in the carefully constructed armor of Dominion supremacy. The ship lurched again as internal cannons rotated toward the core chamber, preparing to eliminate any threat within. Mela recognized the tactic immediately. The Dominion would sacrifice the entire vessel to ensure their empire's continuity. She pushed past her exhaustion and slipped around the defensive matrix, searching for a flaw in the system's architecture. Archon positioned himself between her and the approaching danger, ready to shield her with his body should the cannons fire. His gaze swept the chamber, analyzing the rhythm of energy pulses and the subtle distortions flickering across the walls. He realized the ship reacted like a cornered beast, guided by algorithms designed to mimic instinct. That understanding allowed him to anticipate each movement and prepare for the assault. As the first cannon discharged, Archon leapt forward, catching the blast with his shoulder and redirecting it into a support column. The resulting explosion tore through the ceiling, sending debris cascading around them. Mela did not waste a fleeting opening. She slipped deeper into the command matrix and severed the link connecting the flagship to its automated detonation protocol. The countdown halted, and for the first time since boarding the vessel, the ship trembled in hesitation. Syrinx gasped, realizing the Stoneborn had achieved what thousands of worlds had failed to accomplish. Archon dragged him closer, forcing him to witness the unraveling of Dominion control. Mela continued navigating the network, searching for the Master Command anchor that could override the fleet's aggression entirely. She sensed it buried beneath layers of encryption, each layer pulsing with the Dominion's oppressive philosophy. Her fingers danced across the interface, drawing strength from memories of the forest she protected and the ancient promises she upheld. Archon remained vigilant, swatting away drones that dropped from hidden alcoves, their bladed appendages spinning with lethal precision. Every movement he made radiated disciplined ferocity, a testament to centuries spent honing strength without losing empathy. When Mela reached the final layer, she encountered resistance unlike anything before. The system struck back with psychic force, projecting Dominion memories into her mind. Conquered worlds, extinguished cultures, and civilizations ground to ash beneath imperial ambition. She staggered as the weight of galactic suffering crashed through her, yet she refused to collapse. Archon sensed her struggle and roared, his voice reverberating with such power that the illusions fractured. Mela inhaled deeply, reclaiming her clarity, and drove her hand forward, severing the anchor that chained the fleet to its violent doctrine. The flagship convulsed as the Dominion network collapsed, dissolving into disjointed signals. Syrinx screamed, recognizing the death of the empire he worshipped. Archon released him, allowing him to fall to the floor, no longer commander but relic of an order turned obsolete. Mela collapsed to one knee, breathing heavily, yet victorious. Archon helped her stand, his touch reverent, acknowledging the profound strength she had wielded. For a moment, the chamber rested in unnatural silence as the ship accepted its new reality. Then a faint broadcast echoed to the intercom. Dominion vessels requesting directives, their programmed certainty stripped away. Mela answered with calm authority, instructing them to withdraw from Earth's orbit and disengage from hostile operations. The message carried the unmistakable timbre of someone who neither feared power nor craved it. Archon ensured Syrinx understood that survival depended on honoring this directive without deviation. The former commander nodded, defeated yet alive, aware that rebellion against the Stoneborn would guarantee his destruction. As the Dominion fleet folded into warp, leaving Earth's sky unscarred, Mela and Archon stood together amid the fading light of the core chamber. Their bodies ached, their minds throbbed, yet their spirits remained unbroken. They had preserved a world that would never fully understand the depth of their sacrifice. Archon suggested they return to the forest, where silence and shadow still recognized their names. Mela agreed, knowing their duty was complete but not ended, for guardianship never truly ceased. They walked toward the extraction craft, leaving behind a vessel that had once symbolized oppression and now stood as a testament to resilience. And though the battle had reached its conclusion, the path ahead remained unwritten, promising challenges only those with unyielding hearts could face.